Hi, welcome back as we read bedtime stories from Beyond Cuddle Party. And we're on rule number 5. So we're about halfway through the book now. So thanks so much for joining along. Rule number 5. If you are a maybe, say no. The price you have to pay to live your dream is facing your deepest, darkest fear. But the reward you receive from this courageous act is the realization that your fear was an illusion and that your dreams were always real. If you want to be happy and really live your dream, you have to take a stand and just put yourself out there. You might fail, yes. Yes, indeed. But you might. You just might succeed too. Don't you want to find out? Either way, your life will never be the same. Can you handle it? Jackson Kiddard. Freedom means the capacity to say yes when a yes is needed, to say no when no is needed, and sometimes to keep quiet when nothing is needed, to be silent, not to say anything. When all these dimensions are available, there is freedom. Osho. This is my favorite cuddle party rule of all. More than all the rest combined, it has been utterly, utterly transformational in my life. It sounds so simple, right? If you're a maybe, say no. And it is a simple concept. But as you put it into practice, you begin to reveal layers of other gifts it has to offer. In this chapter, I shall discuss a few of those layers that have been instrumental on numerous fronts in helping me reclaim my voice. In Cuddle Party, we use this rule, say no if you are a maybe, because we often say maybe or maybe later because we're afraid of disappointing the person making the request. The person is likely to wait a little while and then to diligently check back with you to see if now you're a yes. If you again tell them maybe, this time they wait half as long and then come back to find out if you are a yes now. You're getting frustrated, wondering why they don't just get a clue, when in actuality, they are doing exactly what you're telling them to do. You said maybe later, and it is later, so they're circling around to see if you are now a yes. Their excitement and their waiting on you for an answer can feel like pressure. The easiest way to let you both off the hook is to just say no. That puts closure on their request, leaving them free to ask others, and thus they increase the chance of finding someone who is indeed a yes right now. Even more importantly, it gives you time to figure out whether you might become a yes if A, B, and C were to happen. As an example, suppose someone made a request for you to cuddle with them while they talk about their day with you. Suppose the room happens to be very loud, so although you would like to do that with them, a part of you is not sure. You realize you're a maybe, so you tell the person making that request no. A little while later, you have the idea of making a small cuddle corner in a quieter part of the room where you would be able to hear them clearly. You can then approach the person who made the original request to see if the offer is still on the table. If they say yes, you offer your modification, and if they're still a yes, you're good to go. And the greatest gift of all is that you've given yourself time to continue to find out in your own mind if you are a no before you begin an activity with a person, instead of becoming sure of it when you are already in the middle of it. Something to which you said yes when you were in fact just a maybe, it can be a lot more awkward and almost certainly much more disappointing for the other person when you say no at that point than it would have been if you had just said no to begin with. You still want to offer your no when you become clear that you are a no, but it can be so much easier if you do it at the beginning. As we begin practicing this concept, one of the first skills we begin developing is greater awareness, and we experience interactions that arise more deeply and surely from the truths our body are telling us. Our bodies never lie. To figure out if you're a yes or no, or maybe, the best place to look is inward, noticing the clues that your body's always sending you. Slight sensation, warmth, cool toes, a quicker heartbeat, holding your breath, mental fog, gut reaction, the list goes on and on. And if it feels good, you're probably a yes. If it feels unpleasant, you're probably a no. And if the signals are confusing, it's probably a maybe, which for now, please treat as a no. My most profound experience of this principle happened when I was 10 years old. The most popular girl at school was having a slumber party for her birthday. My family moved from house to house so often in my childhood that I never managed to get invited to the popular hangouts. But for whatever reason, this girl invited me. From the moment the invitation was given, two things happened almost simultaneously. A part of me felt queasy, apprehensive, that going to the party would not be in my best interest. I was nervous about mixing with the popular girls. I feared I might be better off avoiding a party, where I might make a laughable impression that would haunt the rest of my time at that school. But another part of me, the super stubborn part, buckled down for the long haul. Whatever it took, I was going to go to that party. My family, being very religious, resolved everything by prayer. My mom asked me to go pray about it, and if I had a good feeling, she would let me go. But she wanted me to take my 8-year-old sister as well. When I prayed about going, I had all sorts of alarm systems going off inside my body. My mouth was dry, a major headache was developing, and my tummy felt even worse. It all intensified because as I knelt in prayer, I knew that in order to go to the party, I would have to do something that I almost never could. Something I didn't want to do. I would have to succeed in telling a lie. In this case, a lie about feeling good about the party. I practiced in front of the mirror, summoning memories of all the times I felt good, on everything my imagination could conjure up about how amazing this party would be. Somehow I pulled it off. It was one of only a couple times I got away with lying to my mom. I tried a few other times, but my non-poker face always gave me away. And so she sent me and my little sister off for a night of our dreams. Oh, it was a dream for sure. A nightmare. From the moment we got there, the other girls picked on my sister, they separated us into different rooms, and to me, a whole other world was revealed. The parents were upstairs drinking and arguing most of the night, and so were oblivious to how the girls had put on cable TV with a movie about a serial killer who strangled women in public bathrooms. I had never seen a movie or TV show that would have been past a G rating. To this day, I'm still wary of public bathrooms, always watching the top of the stalls to make sure that there's no wires descending down to strangle me. I kept closing my eyes, but the girls would make fun of me, and there was nowhere else to go. I finally escaped into sleep, but awoke to the girls dipping my fingers in warm water, trying to get me to pee. It was pretty late by then. The girls all wanted to go outside and toilet paper the neighbors' yards and car. My sister wanted to watch that, so I ventured outside with the rest of the giggling preteens. 10 minutes later, the birthday girl's dad came outside, threatening us all back inside with a rock salt pellet gun. He shot one round into the ground, and needless to say, the cops were called, all the parents were called, including my mom, and I was not allowed another sleepover until I was 15. It was a valuable lesson. If I had been following rule number 5, the instant I felt conflict come up in my body, I would have recognized the signal that I was a maybe. So it would have been a world easier to just say no at the beginning than to have to collide with my deeper no in the middle of that activity. The best part about this practice is that over time, you begin to develop muscle memory, just as you do with working out at the gym on a regular basis, and becoming more aware of your body's responses to requests and invitations. It becomes ever easier to check in and recognize and trust what your body's telling you. Your yes becomes more fulfilling, your no becomes more powerful, and you get a great sense of what a maybe feels like to you. The next level of this rule I want to cover is this. Once you have developed a strong response of no to your own internal maybe, the next step is diving into your hell yes. And being able to track the things that light you up the most inside, you begin saying no to anything else and to anything that is less. It looks a little like this. Someone asks you to your favorite restaurant. They're interesting enough, But even with the enticing offer of your favorite food, you aren't tingly and ultra excited for this outing. So you make the choice to say no, and you use that time doing something that's truly alive for you in that moment. The thing I enjoy the most about this particular upgrade is that when you have lovers or a community interacting this way with each other, it takes away from that nagging voice that often wonders if the person really wants to be doing this thing with you. When that voice of doubt no longer weighs in, you begin to relax and your connections become less an investment and more a celebration, because everyone's opting in with a choice that is the most purely authentic. It also leaves everyone free to begin asking for the things they really want instead of the things they think another would be a yes to. It cuts back on your trying to mind read because you now trust that the person in front of you will say yes only to the things in which they are a hell yes to. One challenge I've heard people bring to this rule over and over is, what if I'm always a maybe? Then if I followed this rule, I would be saying no to everything. My response is that this is a problem only when they think they'll be missing out on something, when they fear that perhaps this will be the only time this invitation will come around. I was someone who genuinely based the decisions on my life on trying not to miss out. I overstretched, overpromised, and did a lot of things, but none of them really well. I spent 40 years of my life trying to do everything, only to discover a simple truth. Are you ready to hear what I discovered? It is that the only way you can ever miss out is fearing that you might miss out. I want to emphasize the underlying principle here. When you spend all your time and attention trying to accomplish everything, your focus is always a few steps ahead of you or trapped in memories of should-haves. Either way, your focus is not with you. It's not celebrating fully in the hell yes of this moment. It's not celebrating the things you did decide to do, the person you are with, and the activity you are currently involved in. Again, so simple, but rarely easy. It takes time to retrain yourself to trust that you are listening internally, and with that as your basis, to thus be able to trust that where you should be is exactly where you are. A man who had come to Cuddle Party for 3 years occasionally ventured into the Cuddle mosh pit to ask if he could massage or hug someone. Then one Cuddle Party, out of the blue, I watched him go up and ask someone if they would be willing to give him a massage. He was stammering and looked absolutely mortified, but this woman gave him the biggest smile and actually responded, "Hell yes, I would love to offer you that. Thank you so much for asking." This gentleman lit up. He relaxed into her touch, knowing there was nowhere else she would rather be. They exchanged bold requests for the rest of that Cuddle Party, and in all his subsequent parties, I have seen him asking for his own fuck yeses with confidence and assurance, honoring a no when it arrives, and dancing in a celebration when his yes, or when an authentic yes, matched his own. Two profound precepts emerge from adopting this ideal. The first is that even though I practice this rule in so many ways, often on a daily basis, it still can be difficult, sometimes unbearably so. I wanted to add this part in for the days you may curse my name for introducing you to this concept. There's so much for you to uncover about yourself when you begin to explore the intricacies available to you as you continue to distinguish between your yes, no, and maybe. Then the difficulty doesn't have to preclude fun as you start to recognize the changes and shifts in all your relationships, beginning with yourself. Secondly, I'm going to ask you to put aside a belief that we have all been handed since childhood. You can always pick it back up again when you finish this chapter or this book. That is the idea that selflessness and being of service are good, and that self-centeredness and greed are bad. What if you could reclaim self-centeredness is centered in self, or as the beloved Sean Roop says, that it is a call to return home. I'll share a vulnerable example that began 5 years ago. I've been traveling back and forth from Utah to San Diego, a 7-hour drive, once a month for almost 3 years. I desperately wanted my husband and 3 sons to be part of my ever-growing community and chosen family in Southern California. So when they started talking about moving out there, I couldn't wait, and we moved within 3 months. We sold or gave away everything that did not fit in the back of a truck, and all 5 of us moved into a friend's one-bedroom RV. For me, things went well. I was in my element, and I had my family and my community. I was living the lifestyle that I'd only tasted up until that point. My husband and oldest son looked for work. My 2 younger sons did their best to fit in with a culture that was totally different from the one in which they'd grown up. They tried really hard, but eventually began just going through the motions. They each became more despondent, and we all became more distant, because at home it felt so miserable. I went from traveling and teaching abroad once every few months to saying yes to more and more events out of town. My oldest son was the first to return to his center. He rented a car, packed his few belongings, and headed back to Utah, there to start anew. It was a full year later before the rest of us threw in the towel. We had a clearing conversation with many tears, a few raised voices, and a lot of regrets. Me for not having realized the extent to which California wasn't working for the rest of my family. They were there only for me. They each had regrets for not having spoken up sooner, for their desire to take care of me and make me happy, which overrode their own desire for their eventual need to move back to Utah. Even after we had those realizations, there weren't any easy answers, but we continued the conversations. I didn't want to leave San Diego. My husband had overgiven and had stayed in martyr mode for so long that he didn't have any idea where home was for him, or how even to begin returning to center. Our boys moved back with my mom. My husband eventually moved back to Utah too, after he had reclaimed his right to follow his own needs. He began retraining himself to be greedy, so when he offered service, it was from a place of abundance and not from a place of that is what you have to do. A few months ago, I too moved back home to Utah, realizing I could visit all the places that called to me, but that the most greedy place I could imagine for me is being a mom. We're slowly retraining one another to each interact from our own truth, our own hell yes, our deepest center, in order to allow the others to take care of themselves. We're remembering that the kindest, most selfless, loving, altruistic gift we can offer is the gift of never abandoning ourselves to try and serve another person ever again. It can be so easy to fall into what we've taught, to be loyal, to compromise, to meet another where they need to be met, to endure to the end to receive our reward. But what I want to offer you with the upgrade of this rule is that you can have your reward every day, every single minute. And that the joy that you experience from living life so fully and so filled with energy, and from your needs and values being constantly recognized and met by you, leaves you overflowing with the desire to give from your abundance, because it's all you've become. Life transforms, and you begin to be a role model of permission for others to be greedy too. And soon there isn't even a question of selfish versus selfless. There's just you and me and the joy that is us. There are so many more subtle layers and context to this rule. I could write an entire book on ones I've discovered and I'm still discovering to this day. You redirect your energy and focus to diving deep into your inner landscape when you give yourself permission to be greedy, and acknowledge the ways that a request could be made even better by allowing yourself to imagine what could feel even better. Finding ways to give yourself permission to open to even more pleasure, and to being clear on what does and doesn't work for you, and letting go of the idea that you could ever take care of another person's feelings. It's there that you will find joy beyond measure, and find activities and interactions that delight you beyond anything you have previously known or imagined. Thanks so much for joining me for Rule 5.